Hey folks, Jackdaw here. Who's up for another mighty Dragon Age tinfoil theory to make the wait for the next game a little bit more bearable? You see, I think the prevalent and mysterious secret society that's known as the Executors are a tribe of ancient elves from Solas' time who still linger, perhaps a branch of Gillinan or Andrul's network that have endured this entire time across the sea, posing as one of the greatest threats to Solas' plans. With that as my initial hypothesis, let's throw the kitchen sink at this theory and explore its entirety step by step. For the uninitiated, very briefly, the Executors are a shadowy syndicate that speak on behalf of powers across the sea. I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if you have never heard of the Executors before, because they were very subtly introduced in Dragon Age Inquisition through a series of subtle war table operations. To cut to the chase, these war table operations uncovered the Executors appealing to the Inquisition, not to be antagonistic, but to determine if the Inquisition's forces could defeat Corypheus. Once the Executors believed that the Inquisition could defeat Corypheus, they simply left them to their fate, stating that, for the moment, they are not their enemy. Based on that encounter, it seems that this faction have Thedas' best interests at heart, ensuring that the land is safe from any threat who dare oppose it by any means, thus explaining why the Executors made their presence known to the Inquisition, firstly against Corypheus, and most recently in Dragon Age Tevinter Nights against the Dread Wolf, but more on that one in a second. As a summary of their greater intentions, the Executors stated to the Inquisition that Thedas' present troubles are great, however, more will come. They prepare for that day and hold vigil, which greatly foreshadows the Executors' presence in Thedas. For the longest time, the Executor's triangular symbol, with wavy lines drawn through it, was the only identifiable source that related directly to them. However, Dragon Age Tevinter Nights revealed a physical agent of the Executors kitted in dark robes of Rantium Samite, covered head to toe with a thin mesh that covered their hood. Their robes were trimmed in a twisted shape pattern that curled to points and places that can make one's eyes hurt. Beyond their hooded robes, their appearance remained a mystery. When this specific Executor agent spoke, their voice carried no distinction of age or gender, almost as if their speech was a presence that filled the room rather than a person speaking behind hooded robes. And very unsurprisingly, the Executor agent carried a faint whiff of the ocean and something beyond the ocean, which is also something I will come back to very soon. While Tevinter Nights' description of an Executor agent creates more questions than answers, we now have a decent outline on their appearance and we know what to expect. Robed, hooded, smells of the ocean, with no clear distinction of gender or age. Now that we've uncovered all of that, let's take a step back and explore this theory, examining each piece of evidence that supports my hypothesis that the Executors are ancient Elven. First up, let's unwrap the Executors' Elven ties examined through concept art. Taking a gander at the 2021 concept art piece that showcased a mystifying hooded figure with an enigmatic magical triangle bow, in my opinion, everything in this artwork resembles an Executor agent. The embedded triangle symbols, the fully covered hooded figure, the gold trims, and the mysterious magical bow made of floating triangles. So, for the sake of this entire video, I am going ahead with the assumption that this concept art piece is indeed an Executor agent. With that prefaced, our agent is barefooted, which is actually a huge deal and our first lead for this theory, because throughout Dragon Age games, the only group in Thedas that's culturally barefooted are the elves. For example, Solas, an ancient elf, is barefooted, and Fenris, a modern day elf, is also barefooted. In fact, the majority of the elves in the games are barefoot. This is proven of course in game and in many elven concept art pieces, thus proving that this aversion to footwear is an elven thing, ancient or not. So what does that mean for our Executor agent here? Well, it means that their design / outfit appears rather elven in nature. And that is not all. In addition, the Executor's colours have a very similar colour scheme to the ancient elves, with their gold trims and darker colour shades. The Executor agent's design is parallel to the Sentinel elves in the Temple of Mafal. While the Sentinel elves followed many contrasting green colour schemes, the Executor has a lighter autumnal scheme with the familiarity of the Sentinel elves. This similar style is shared with the other concept art pieces of potential Executor agents, showcasing that the conceptual designs for Executor agents are rather Elven inspired, coincidentally. So, could the Executors have ties to the ancient elves, yet follow a different colour scheme because they worship maybe a different Elven god? For instance, perhaps the Sentinel elves wore green to resemble / honour Mafal. Maybe the Executors decorate themselves differently, resembling a different Elven god, thus explaining their autumnal colour scheme. Now we'll touch more on Elven gods later on, but adding more into the mix, if we look at this concept art piece, it most likely showcases two Executor agents given their similar autumnal coloured and their robed style. They have a protection shield / spell of triangles, and most importantly, the figure on the right is wielding this mysterious, very familiar bow made of floating triangles. For obvious reason, I think it's very safe to assume that this bow is of Executor design. The floating triangles kind of give it away. With that shocking revelation, this Executor bow ties this concept art piece and the original concept art piece together, connecting these figures as potential Executor agents. Now, even more importantly, this bow ties those concept art pieces together and also the figure that was revealed holding this very same bow in the Game Awards 2020 trailer. This horned, enigmatic figure that has been dubbed as the mysterious V Archer by former creative director Matthew Goldman. Now, it's also worth noting that this trailer is promotional material, so perhaps this figure in the trailer is the potential in-game look of an Executor. But given all of these connections, I think it's a very safe bet to say that every single figure who has been seen holding this bow is an Executor. The bow itself is drawn physically by the figure in the Game Awards trailer, whereas in the concept art pieces, it's almost as if the bow is being cast as a spell. Of course, I'm comparing concept art to a trailer, but that's not the point. The point is that there seems to be some sort of magical element to the Executors, given their composition in this trailer and the other concept art pieces, like the spell / shield of floating triangles. As well as already being completely enigmatic and a secret society, do the Executors potentially have a completely unknown magical element to them? But shuffling away from that, while this bow does connect the multiple concept art pieces together and this promo trailer potentially representing the Executors as a unit, we still have another huge Elven connection to explore that brings the Executors and the ancient elves together, and that is the mysterious V Archer's horns. Initially, when this Game Awards 2020 trailer came out, many of us speculated about this mysterious figure. We were able to guess the other figures in the trailer, but this is the one that threw us back, and most particularly, that was because of their horns. Are they a Qunari? Could they be a witch of the wilds? A Navaran Mortartasi? Who / what are they? Well, before I straight up state that I believe this figure is an Executor, let's delve into it a bit more, shall we? Previously explored in Inquisition's concept art was a very interesting and bold design for an ancient Elven Sentinel. As you can see, this concept art explored the Sentinel elves with huge curved horns, exactly like this figure in the 2020 Game Awards trailer. While this is of course a conceptual design for an ancient elf, at one point BioWare were considering giving the Sentinel elves horns, for whatever reason. So, with this new figure in the Game Awards trailer having very similar horns like this, does that mean that this figure is an ancient elf, very similar to the Sentinel elves? Have BioWare re-implemented an Elven concept design for this new figure? If so, given that this figure also ties to the Executors, are the Executors a resurfaced, splintered group of the ancient elves, very similar to the Sentinel elves? Perhaps, but we've got more to talk about than just concept art. Let's keep this going. The next huge Elven connection that's going to solidify this theory requires an entire section dedicated to it. Let's look at the Dragon Age Day short story Ruins of Reality and the Tevinter Nights story 3 Trees to Midnight. The Ruins of Reality short story featured Strife, a newly introduced elf from 3 Trees to Midnight in Tevinter Nights, thus tying these two stories together. As a quick TLDR, in 3 Trees to Midnight, we discovered that Strife is a tall, Starkhaven elf with silvery hair and a strong build. He's at least 50 years old and he has no Valisleen. Strife left the Starkhaven alienage after hitting a guard who was beating elven children. Fleeing the city, Strife lived in the woods by himself until the Dalish found him. He later joined their clan known as the Morlyn clan and picked up what he could from them. Since then, Strife was taken captive by the Qunari Antam. He escaped their grasp with the help of Tevinter mage Mirian and elven shapeshifter Irilyn. Together, they fled into the Alvan forest, making their way back to the Morlyn clan. Now this is where we shake things up. The Ruins of Reality story was set just after the events of 3 Trees to Midnight. The story followed Strife and Irilyn hunting down a relic that belonged to their clan. The pair ventured through the cursed Arlathan forest, trekking tricked by its ancient magic until Irulen recovered their clan relic, a crystal Hala figurine held by a statue of Gillinan. Now hold on to that thought for later. Let's take a look at the official artwork of this story, as it tells us even more about this tale. The artwork showcased Strife looking at a reflection of himself in the Elven forest, wearing a red cloak with a downward pointed triangle with two wavy lines drawn through it, the most iconic Executors emblem. Irulen's shadow can be seen at the bottom of his cape looking over him. In addition, just like the previous concept art pieces, Strife is barefoot, wearing red hooded robes with floating triangles all over. Of course, it makes sense for Strife to be barefoot because he is an elf. However, why would he be wearing a cowl belonging to the Executors? Well, Strife said that when he joined the Morlyn clan, he picked up what he could from them. So, are the Morlyn clan the Executors? Strife was a nobody until this clan found him, and suddenly he's training in their ways, robed with an Executor emblem, looking for elven relics in the Arlefan forest. I think it would certainly make a lot of sense, especially given the dots that we've already connected. So we're going to go ahead with this bold prediction and state that the Executors are the Morlyn clan. Even further, in 3 Trees to Midnight, while being chased, Strife said to Mirian, "If we get out of here alive, it'll be because of what Andruil taught my people." So, considering that Strife was a city elf until he joined the Morlyn clan, I assume when he refers to his people, he means his Dalish clan, the Morlyn clan. So given that Strife is praising Andruil directly, we have a small tie to an elven god that could mean something huge for the Executors, especially considering that Andruil is the elven goddess of the hunt. She has many ties to survival, powerful weapons of the void, the way of the arrow, the way of the bow, and the way of the forest, etc. She is one of the perfect candidates that fits this hypothetical ancient elven executor cult. Like seriously, the Executors are giving strong hunter vibes, and Andruil is the goddess of the hunt. It fits perfectly. But that's not the only elven god that ties to all of this, as you can tell. We need to talk about Irulen, Strife's shape-shifting companion. Irulen has a lot of representation with Gillinan, considering she literally transformed into a Hala in 3 Trees to Midnight, and she recovered an idol of Gillinan that belonged to the Morlyn clan in Ruins of Reality. Also, Irulen's shape-shifting talent and the elven god's ability to shapeshift is just as sus regarding Irulen's potential identity. But moving away from that, because that's a completely different theory, the Executors and Gillinan do have many similarities. As mentioned in the first part of this theory, the Executors speak on behalf of powers across the sea. There's something/someone beyond their entire order. Also, they carry a faint whiff of the ocean and something beyond the ocean. In the Horror of Hormak Tevinter Nights story, Grey Wardens discovered a chamber with a ghastly pool of viscous grey fluid. The entire vicinity was elven in design, with a formidable stench of seawater and formed patterns of the horns of a Hala. It's speculated that this chamber belonged to Gillinan, and this pool was used to mutilate creatures. Putting all of these dots together, the Executors smell like the ocean, and Gillinan has hidden chambers with mutilated pools that smell like seawater. Gillinan was said to create giants, monsters, and beasts that spanned across the sky, water, and earth. However, before she ascended to godhood, she had to destroy all her creations. Before she killed those of the sea, pride stopped her hand. And we all know who pride is. Now that's even more interesting considering the Executors come from beyond the sea and speak on behalf of powers across the sea. So, do they serve Gillinan, or maybe one of Gillinan's creations? Are they her own personal network? Could the Executors themselves also be mutilated creatures like the ones that lied within Gillinan's hidden chambers? This could explain why they don't want to reveal themselves and even their horned look, especially given Gillinan's relation to the Hala. This is going to be the biggest claim yet, but as we know, Hala also have horns similar to this speculated Executor agent. I think that is pretty on the nose. Now, on the other hand, I could also just make a claim about the Executors and their ties to Andruil, given what I did already previously explore with the whole hunting, the way of the arrow, the way of the bow, and the Executors have been represented in predatory situations. So while I do lean more on the Executors following Gillinan, I think just as a safe bet, we're going to say that the Executors most likely follow an ancient elven god. Whether that's Gillinan or Andruil, we're not sure, but there are definitely ties to Gillinan, Gillinan's creations, and Andruil. But now that we've kind of got the majority of their identity out the way and who they could be, we're not done just yet. The final part of this theory involves looking at the Executors' future intentions of Solas, which is just going to add to this entire theory and act as a perfect conclusion. So, in the Dreadwolf Take You Tevinter Nights story, Solas disguised himself as an Orlesian bard, infiltrating a meeting comprised of Fadis' best intelligence factions, the Inquisition, the Carter, the Mortalitassi, and the Executors. Each faction member shared their knowledge of the Dreadwolf and his current scheme. During the conversations of this meeting, the Executor agent spoke about how the Executors care only for Solas' goals and his means of accomplishing them. They disregarded any other information that didn't help with the elimination of the wolf, revealing their hostile intentions towards Solas. As each representative went around the room explaining their intel on the wolf, Solas very subtly killed the Executor agent before they could fully share their findings to the group. Despite the rest of the agents who shared their knowledge on Solas, the Executor agent was the only one that was killed before they could share their entire intelligence. While the rest of the agents, minus Charter, the Inquisition spy, were later killed, they were at least able to share their intel to the Inquisition. This begs many questions between Solas and the Executors. Like, what do the Executors know about Solas that he'd rather the rest of Fadis' intelligence factions not know? Also, how long has Solas been aware of the Executors' presence? Has he known about them for a while? Does he know their ties to ancient elves? Has this been since the ancient days? Or has it just been a recent discovery that he's found through his network? Either way, for Solas, it seems that the concealment of their intel was worth physically infiltrating this meeting, silencing this Executor agent. There is something about the Executors that Solas finds threatening, whether that's the information they have, the powers that they speak on behalf of, or something else entirely. Solas is intimidated by them. Ironically, after killing this Executor agent, Solas told the Inquisition spy, known as Charter, that the Executors are dangerous, which was said with intent, almost as if they've personally done something to Solas to earn that description. Even with the Inquisition, the Carter, and the Mortalitassi present, Solas stated that the Executors are the dangerous ones. So given that stance, do the Executors have a way to foil Solas' plan? Do they know about his scheme, and therefore are dangerous to him, yet worthwhile allies for the rest of Fadis? Do they know exactly who he is? Have they met him before? Do they have a long-standing rivalry with him? Or has this war effort been a recent thing against Solas? Well, we really don't know. But if we tie all of this theory together, it would certainly make sense if the Executors were an Elven god's personal network, hostile to Solas' intentions given how he defeated the Elven pantheon. Could the Executors be out for revenge, opposing Solas by any means, thus explaining why they've decided to help Fadis' present factions? While this is only a theory and a long-winded one at that, it certainly presents a deeper cause for the Executors and their future plans against Dreadwolf. Also, in another regard, the next Dragon Age game's promotional material at the moment has been heavily speculating towards Gillinan and Andrul and a few other members of the Elven pantheon, and I think with this theory it's the perfect way to bridge that gap, tying this enigmatic faction to the entire picture. But I think sounding off, as a quick rebuttal to some aspects of this theory, a lot of the evidence I have presented is concept art that refers to non-official work or work in progress, and some of the pieces are just quite widespread, like Strife's clan being the Executors. Maybe Strife is just wearing Executor cloak, maybe he just found a cloak randomly, but even so I feel like we have at least hit the nail on the head with some cases, especially the Elven ties. Maybe not all of them, but that is to be expected given the nature and the mystery of the Executors and how much we know about the next Dragon Age at the moment and the promotional material that we are working with. In any regard, this joining the dots was just a bit of fun on my behalf. Please let me know down below what you think about the Executors and their ongoing mystery. Do you believe that they are a personal cult of Gillinan or Andrul? Maybe even one of Gillinan's creations? Kind of full on whack out there, following some enigmatic magical beast? Do you have any other supporting evidence that you can bring to the table on this secret society's identity? And who/what do you think they are? And most importantly, who/what do you think they speak on behalf of? I would love to hear every single crazy theory you have on the identity of this mysterious shadowy syndicate. But until the next one, you're already in the right place for all of your Dragon Age needs. If you would like to support my channel, be sure to check out my channel memberships and my Patreon. But until the next one, I have been Jackdaw, and I should go. Whoa, 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 whoa.